Good afternoon and welcome to the OPTIBIOTIX Health PLC investor presentation. Throughout this recorded presentation, investors will be in listen-only mode. Questions are encouraged and can be submitted at any time by the Q&A tab situated in the right-hand corner of your screen. Just simply type in your questions and press send. The company may not be in a position to answer every question during the meeting itself. However, the company will review all questions submitted today and publish responses where it is appropriate to do so. Before we begin, I'd like to submit the following poll. And I'd now like to hand you over to Stephen O'Hara, CEO. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, and good afternoon to investors. So my name is Stephen O'Hara. I'm the founder and CEO of OPTIBIOTIX Health PLC. I'm also the founder of PROBIOTIX Health PLC and of Skin Biotherapeutics PLC. And what I want to do today is go through some of the typical questions that we get from shareholders. And I hope at the end of this, you'll understand that we've actually built quite a lot of value in the business. Now, I recognise the share price is low. And I recognise that because, a bit like you, I'm also an investor. I'm an investor in a whole range of stocks which are all down. And for every penny that the share price in OPTIBIOTIX goes down, I lose over £100,000. So I've got, if anyone's got a skin in this game, it's me. And a requirement to build the share price up. We are in a strange market, and it's quite an unusual stock market. But I hope by the time we've gone through this presentation, you will see that we built real value, and that's value not just in the assets that we have in terms of probiotics and Skin Biotherapeutics. I'll cover probiotics in a bit more detail later on, but that is a growing asset for the company, or in Skin Biotherapeutics, again, an asset for the company, but also in our first generation products, which were growing quite nicely up until 2022, and we had a poor year. And then it's looking at how we recover from that poor year. Now, 2022 was a poor year for many people in the industry. You're probably well aware that about 70% of AIM stocks, there's a 70% increase in the number of profit warnings on AIM. And across the industry, in terms of probiotics and prebiotics, it was very much a poor year. And the question we have to ask ourselves, is that a sign of the future, or was that a temporary blip in the building the company? And we think it's a temporary blip, and I'll go through the reasons why. So we want to make sure we get that our first generation products back to profitability. Then also we have to make sure that in terms of our second generation products, so if you like, the first generation products were the cake, and they get us to a position where we have sales of 10 to 20 million, so we have 100 million plus valuation company. And we bring forward our second generation products, our sweet biotics and microbiome modulators, to add the icing to the cake. And I just want to take you through where we are with those and how close we are to commercialization, which is very, very close. And then just give an indication as to the revenue potential for 2026. So as I said earlier, these are all constant questions I get individually or from bulletin boards from investors. So I hope you'll find it a useful presentation that answers some of the main questions that investors ask. So just a very quick overview, and this is because in a presentation like this, you have existing investors, but also you have some new investors coming in. I just want to give a quick overview behind what OPTIBIOTIX Health PLC is. And so it's made up of three companies, if you like. Skin Biotherapeutics, so a skin company that has one product on the market, Access Biotics, and an ingredient which is licensed to Croda that has a market cap around about 30 million. We have a company called PROBIOTIX Health PLC, which I put on the market last year on the Aquis market, and that has an ingredient called LPLDL and a range of products called Colbiome that reduce cholesterol, reduce blood pressure, reduce arterial plaque, and a more general product for cardiovascular health. And that's got a market cap, quite amazingly, of 6 million, and we'll come to the reason mention that now in a second. Then the market cap of OPTIBIOTIX Limited of 9 million. So actually, if you take our value from Skim, it's about 6 million, and our value into the market cap of Probiotics, then our market cap is less than the sum values of those two companies. And so within OPTIBIOTIX, we have a range of first generation products that are on the market. These are Slim Biome, OptiBiome, Lean Biome, OptiZos, and Well Biome. And we've got the second generation sweet biotics and microbiome modulators that are coming through shortly, and more on that later. And just going back to my comment in terms of the value of Probiotic Health PLC, I just want to draw you to this Probi acquisition, which was made in 2021. They acquired a stake in Bliss, which valued Bliss, an oral health company. Haven't really got the clinical studies that probiotics have, or don't have graphs or a range of other things. But that value, their valuation was 38 million, based on revenues of 1.9 million. I'm pretty confident, based on what happened last year in terms of probiotics, that will get to or at least exceed £2 million in this in 2023. So if you look at where we are now, into the market cap of 6 million, and if you look at where we have 2 million sales in 2023, then we should be around about 35-40 million. It's clearly very much undervalued. You can even compare the market cap of probiotics to Skim Biotherapeutics. A big difference in the market cap, and of course, as I said earlier, we're looking for somewhere in the region of 2 million for probiotics. It did about 1.4 million in 2022, and you've got a comparison of £75,000 for Skim Biotherapeutics. So in my, and I'll have to say that Skim Biotherapeutics is overvalued. I'm making clear that Probiotics Health is massively undervalued, and there's a reason for that. Is because we put the company on Aquis, we gave out a dividend, and people sold about £300,000 worth of shares in a liquid market. That brings the share price down, but we need to look at how we recover that. So that's sort of a general overview. And if I go to the next slide, I just want to show how we try to create value and why this is important. So, and there's 5 key pillars, and these are. So I used to be a director of 3M Healthcare. 3M is a 36 billion turnover company, and I bought and sold a number of parts of 3M. I also used to be a director of an investment group, and whether you're looking at it from the private sector or from the as a institutional investor, these are the key pillars that make the difference. This is what industry values, okay, when you talk to potential partners. So first of all, it values the science. You have to have science that works, okay? That may sound obvious, but that's not always the case, particularly in terms of ingredients and supplements. Many ingredients and supplements are sold on marketing. So it's important, if you do, to really substantiate your product, that you have good science. The next thing we need to have is human studies, and all our products have human studies. Okay, we've got 3 studies, human studies on our Slim Biome, and we have a number of studies in terms of our sweet biotics, and of course, in terms of LPLDL, we have a number of studies in terms of LPLDL, 3 studies, and they're really, really important. And I'll emphasize that how clear it is, and I'll show you the reason for that later. You have to have patents because you have to protect your commercial position, okay? And again, we probably over patent. We spend about £250,000 per year on patents, and we do that because if we were looking to be acquired, your patent is where your value lies, and particularly in some areas like sweet biotics, microbiome modulators, we built a patent portfolio. That was actually one of the main reasons that Firmenich came in and did a deal with us, because we blocked off their ability to create products that they were looking at. Then you need to get some industry awards. You need to get the industry saying, yeah, we quite like this this technology. We quite like these products. And that can be in terms of industry awards. More likely in terms of looking at the value of the business, is looking at which companies have actually formed deals with this particular with OPTIBIOTIX. So if you've got key companies, key brands in weight management, key brands in terms of sport nutrition, key brands in terms of pharmaceuticals, particularly in the case of LPLDL, that gives partners or acquirers or other groups who are looking, when we look to move past the business onto other markets, that gives you an awful lot of credibility. So these are just a couple of examples in terms of our publications, okay? So we have lots of publications on Slim Biome. So on the left-hand side are peer-reviewed publications. In the center here are our publications that are presented as abstracts and as papers and as posters in various conferences. And this is quite important because when you go to a partner, particularly a large part like your Nestlé's, your Abbott Nutrition's, your DuPont's, etc., you go through a process of getting validity from their research teams in the first instance. So if you've met and presented with and beside those research teams, you've got that credibility already. So it gets you one step ahead. It shortens that particular process, which is a long process anyhow. But there's another reason. And so you have to have the science and the studies to get health claims. Let me tell you what I mean by that and why it's so important. So you realise earlier on the year that we submitted a regulatory claim in Australia and New Zealand called for SANS. That's their regulatory body, okay? And that allows you to make unique health claims for your product. So it allows you on the OptiSlim products to say you can use for weight management. Okay, it allows you to say, you can see these things here, it can reduce hunger, it can reduce cravings as a patented ingredient. And more recently, we've got claims to say reduce hunger, reduce cravings, and improve the gut microbiome. So these are claims that go onto the boxes, okay, and go onto the website. That means that when a customer comes across them in the pharmacies, and these are sold in pharmacies, or now with Optifarm, who are Australian distributor through Maxim, sold online, you can get across the benefits to the customer. If you haven't got this science, okay, and you can't get a regulatory approval for a health claim, you have to use things like OptiBac, very well-known probiotic. It just says digestive supplement, okay, friendly bacterial. Or if you take Access Biotics, which is the skin supplement, it just says food supplement, okay, and it has 4 billion bacteria. So you can't say reduces eczema or improves psoriasis or improves skin conditions. That's why the clinical studies are so critical, okay, and the science is so critical. So that when you build a business, you have to build it on these particular foundations. You can't take shortcuts, okay? These are just our awards, which are quite important for most companies, particularly in Asia, but maybe not for all. Okay, and finally, you mentioned about these partners. So having these partners, people like Firmenich, people like the distributor partners like Walmart and the Hack Group, Apollo in India, Holman & Barrett, they all give us credibility with partners. You leverage that credibility with other partners. Okay, so I mention this because whenever you take a product to market, you have to look at the longer term, and the longer term is building the company in terms of on the stock market, but also potential for a trade sale, which I've done on a number of occasions. Okay, so just to sort of step back a bit, and so what I hope I've shown to you is we build a lot of value in the company. Okay, and this value is recognised by the industry. Okay, and just to step back and just put that into context. So the strategy was the PLC. This is the top part of the company to be able to technology. So it raises funds to be able to technology. It builds the divisions. Okay, so initial divisions, so skin biotics, probiotics, and prebiotics. Then when you get an active element of science to a point where they can be commercialized, when they're commercialized, the commonality there's a commonality in science, but there's not a commonality in terms of challenge to market. So the challenge to market for a probiotic, for example, is via a supplement. The challenge to market for a prebiotic is via an ingredient. So speaking to different people, so you're doubling up your efforts there, and that's why we take them into separate companies. Just a couple of other things just to bring out. What it gives us as a business is multiple positions in the microbiome space. We are recognised as one of the very few companies in the world to have multiple positions in the microbiome space. And that gives us an element of risk reduction, but also means that those assets, as we grow, we can sell off various parts of those assets for various purposes. We've only raised 8.8 million worth of funds, and if you take other companies on the stock market, if you take Seed, they've raised over 50 million. If you take other companies in this area, and some of you are aware of that, into the 40 Pharma, 230, 250 million, although they very much were in an area which is pharmaceutical, so you made the right decision not to go that particular route. So we haven't raised a great deal of funds, and we've got, I think, a reasonable return for that. A couple of things to bring out. Probiotics, PBS, is a really valuable asset, okay? As I said earlier, it is undervalued on the stock market for reasons I said. We gave a dividend in specie. We wanted to do that to benefit our shareholders. A couple of shareholders sold because they saw that they wanted to get income in. I can fully understand that, as everyone's right. Actually, the share price down, but that's got a lot of value. That's got more value than 6 million. That's worth currently, in my view, 35 to 40 million, and we will achieve that. Okay, I have no doubt we'll achieve that. And it certainly has got a high potential uplift in a market that has got lots of M&A activity. Okay. And as I mentioned earlier, it's got 20 times more sales than skin biotherapeutics, 1/5 the value. And as I also touched on, I don't think that's because skin biotherapeutics is undervalued. I think it's because, it's overvalued. I think it's because probiotics is undervalued. And that is recognised by the industry, and we get a fair bit of interest in this particular area. And what we then have to do is say, okay, if it's undervalued currently, how do you extract that value? And part of the reason that it's undervalued is because we've got a more liquid market, or we have to look at the trade sale when the time is right. Okay, our focus for this year is building up probiotics and getting sales 2 million plus. Okay, and I think we'll achieve that. And then go to the commercial strategy, and most of you know this. So the idea was to build a first generation products, get to a position where initially we sell B2B, that's business to business, so we sell ingredient. We then start to build our own brands, then we start selling those direct to customers. And what we achieved in 2020 and 2021 was profitability in both the prebiotics and probiotics part of the business. And 2022 all went downhill. So our focus now is on return to profitability in 2023. That's our focus. And there's a range of ways we can achieve that. Okay, I'll make a lot of progress in that area. And then I know a lot of people thought, well, okay, we're interested in Slim Biome. It's a good product, but never be a big seller. Well, I think it will be 10-20 million as we go forward across the first generation. But I also recognise that people are very much interested in second generation, and we're getting there. Okay. Do you remember when I acquired Skin Biotics, okay, in 2017, that had 5 years of really good research behind it from Professor Catherine Neal. So I acquired it with research already. What I've had to do with, and that it was a technology was there, what I had to do with Sweet Biotics and our microbiome modulators was create the technology, prove the technology with the publications and with the human studies, and then get a partner. And so we've actually done that since sort of 2018, 19. So whilst investors may think that it's taken a long time, it's fairly normal. In fact, people would look at this as quite making quite good progress in an area that is so complex. This is new science, and it's new technology creating new science. And we're in the final steps now for a commercial launch in late 2023 or 2024. And I'll cover that in more detail later. Just so it's all very well having a strategy, but you've got to ask, is the strategy working? I just want to use this as this is the financials, okay? And it's important to recognise, in the context of where we are today and where we come from. So if you look at the percentage change year on year, okay, and the numbers, so I broke these down to pre-probiotics, okay? You can see that year on year, so in terms of prebiotics, with a 151% increase on the preceding year, probiotics 107%, the PLC 103%. And again, in 2021, remember, COVID started in 2020, started to get a little bit of impact in terms of COVID, but we still grew quite rapidly, double-digit growth in 2021. And each year, in 2020 and 2021, probiotics and prebiotics were profitable, okay? Only just, but profitable. So we got to a position where we built the business up, people were buying product, and it was profitable. And we also built a number of assets, and you can see here in terms of the asset value of Skin Biotherapeutics in particular have an impact in terms of the profitability of the group, and that's really more a balance sheet profit as opposed to a revenue profit. Okay. And we're able to then derive some income, which we did in particular in terms of 2020. I think we sold I can't remember a number of skin shares, so we can derive some revenue from the sale of skin shares, which shows that it's a tangible asset that we can bring value from. Okay, so I think it looks to me as if it was working pre 2022, and the other way of looking at it is that, okay, let's look at our partners, okay, and see how they're performing over the last few years. And what I've done here is quite a complex slide, but I'm going to go through it reasonably slowly. On the left-hand side, you've got the number of metric tons, okay, a product. And then I'll go through each of these in terms of the forecast and the actuals. I'm going to start here with the UK retailer, okay? So this is Holland and Barrett, and this is the number of metric tons that they forecast and what they ordered, okay? For 2020, they forecast 9 metric tons, okay? And just so you're aware, we get forecasts from all our partners, and we link those into exclusivity. If they don't meet those forecasts, we remove exclusivity, or we give them customer protection. And that's for all our partners. So they forecast 9 metric tons in 2020. They actually achieved 9 metric tons. In 2021, they forecast 21 metric tons, and they actually made 20 metric tons. So up to 2021, they're more or less on track in terms of the forecast. In 2022, they forecast 30 metric tons, but we got nothing, okay? That's the impact of COVID in Ukraine. Let's go to our Australian distributor. So we sell to Maxim, who sell on then to Optifarm. So again, let's take you through in terms of asking the question, are our partners delivering on their forecast? And we think they are up into 2020, end of 2021. So what did they forecast? They forecast 15 metric tons. And just so you know, typically a metric ton is sold for about, 1 metric ton is sold about £30,000, somewhere in that region, okay? You do get a bit of variation because when you get a very high volume, we give a discount. We give a discount for some early adopters, but around about 25 to 30 pounds per metric ton. Okay, so they forecast 15 metric tons. Well, look, they actually achieved 20 metric tons. In 2021, they forecast 30 and they achieved 28. In 2022, they forecast 80 and they achieved nothing, okay? So these were the problems that we had in 2022. The other thing I'd sort of point out to you, if we're keeping to this forecast, okay? So this Australian distributor, and this is behind what we were saying a number of years or so ago, they had a forecast for 2023 of 130 metric tons. And certainly before COVID and before Ukraine, they're on track to meet that. So 130 metric tons at £30 per metric ton, around about 3.9 million pounds. So you can see that's where we're going, okay? And just to remind you, up until that period of point until 2022, all we had was those two partners. We had the head group, this is sports group here, and they gave us a forecast in 2022. That's when they first started to build a business, and they gave us a forecast of 7 tons. Ukraine came along, the price of whey protein tripled. They decided not to launch so many products and in so many areas, so they actually achieved 0.5. And again, their forecast for 2023 was 33 metric tons. So when I talked previous about what we're looking for with these partners, giving us revenues around about £1 million per year plus, that's what I was talking about in terms of the forecast. And we were on that way to achieve that in 2020 and 2021, but 2022 came along. What we're going to do now is get back to that particular forecast. Then the Indian pharmacy, again, that's Apollo. So we struck the deal in 2022, and they're due to launch early in 2022, again, because what happened in Ukraine and certainly in terms of the environment, they give a forecast of 12 tons. This is 12,000 boxes and they achieved 16,000. But then we're looking into terms of 2023, and the same for the Gulf Pharmacy. This is Nadia. Again, that's in thousands of pounds as opposed to metric tons. What I'm trying to get across here is that in terms of the business, that we had a limited number of partners in 2020, 2021, and they were growing their sales. Everything dropped off in 2022, where we had the problem. We've now brought on those partners, new partners in 2022 in terms of Apollo, in terms of Nardi, and in terms of the head group. So what we have to now do is get these partners back to those particular forecasts, which is what we're looking to do, and we're making a lot of progress on that. I hope I've explained that well enough. It's quite a complex slide, but the key point is that our partners were performing to forecast before 2022. Okay. And just to sort of bring this out in a bit more detail, so the challenge we had, right, was 2021. We finished 2021 on a real high. Post-COVID, people started to really get interested again in weight management, and really started to build stock levels. So in Q4 2021, we sold just under £500,000 worth of products, and people built up stock levels because people came out with COVID, real growth. Also, to an extent, there was a concern of supply chain because that started being very, very expensive. So they built in stock to reduce the risk of the rising costs in terms of transport. So the problem we ever had going forward was that we had the global economic crisis in 2022 with Ukraine. People then started to use their marketing. They didn't launch so many products. They didn't expand the territories that they planned to expand into. So we ended up in 2022 with 30 metric tons of stock, okay, held with these partners. So they are selling this stock, but they are they're reducing that stock over 2022 and in 2023. But that's the challenge we faced in 2022. But what we believe is that given the history of these partners, we believe the challenges that they had, okay, in 2022 are temporary, and we think we will recover, and we're certainly seeing that recovery now, subject to no further deterioration in the global economy. So, look, you have a problem, you deal with it, okay? And so how are we dealing with it, okay? And I don't want to dwell on the past. 2022 was crap. It was crap all around for many, many companies, not just in terms of the stock market, but also in terms of sales across the board, as I mentioned earlier. So the first thing we have to do is return to a sales focus. I think also in 2022, we had too much development focus, looking towards the future too much. And as I sort of alluded to earlier, we have to either get our partners performing to forecast, okay, or remove them, okay, or bring in other partners in addition, okay. If we do that, we'll get to a baseline by 2025 of just existing partners only of around about 3 to 5 million, okay. Then, because we can't rely on just those, if you think of it, we just had those two partners and the third one came in 2023. So 86% of our sales are from 3 partners, okay? You can't have that. We need to broaden our partner base because we're exposed to a high level of risk that if partners decide to delay you stocking, then we have a problem. So we want to increase our partners, particularly in the US and Asia, where you have higher value in terms of the overall. So typically in Europe, you're looking at Australia, New Zealand, size of the market. You're looking for the bigger companies to maybe do 1-2 million per year. In the US and Asia, you're looking at 10 million, maybe 5 to 10 million. So it's a much bigger market. So we're going to have to increase our channels to market. And by that, it's not just weight management, it's sport nutrition, it's healthy aging. The reason we do that is reduce dependency on the cyclic weight management market. You tend to get peaks and troughs, the start of the year and the middle of the year, as people get over Christmas, want to lose weight, and want to get beach ready for the summer. Now, of course, just to remind you, in 2020 and 2021, all those markets collapsed. Although we still made good sales relative to other people, it did impact in terms of our growth. But mitigating that risk by expanding into other areas like sports nutrition and healthy aging, I think is a good opportunity. And also there's quite a lot of interest in those areas and quite a lot of good science coming through on the microbiome in sport and healthy aging. Extend our range, and you'll see more of those on the website as we go forward. And we have to invest in online direct consumer sales, because in the past, as I said in this bullet point, we had a revenue dependency on 3 partners. 86% of our sales was from 3 partners. We need to reduce that dependency by building up our own direct-to-consumer sales. This requires an investment, which we've done. I'll come to the next slide. I'll show how we're progressing this. But it also means we're selling at a higher price because we're selling the final product at a higher margin, because we've got the ingredient margin and the product margin than if we're selling selling the ingredient alone. And then look, we're in a real world here. If we're not getting the sales that we expected in 2022, then we have to reduce our costs. So, and this is amazing. All our directors took a 20% pay cut in January. Okay, they all volunteered to take a pay cut. So that cut was introduced in January. Okay, we removed our joint broker, which was Senkos. Rennie, who was the CEO of the prebiotic division, came in 2021 halfway through, and in 2021 and 2022, so half year 2021 and full year 2022, and we'll be reducing the number of non-executive directors from 4 to 2 at the AGM. So when the NEDs come up for renewal, we won't be replacing to the NED, and that's all about reducing our costs, because what we have to focus on is getting back to profitability, right? Forget all the rest. We've got to sell more. We've got to reduce our costs. That's how you build a business. Okay, if we do that, we'll be in a very strong position. And critically, we've got to materialize the commercial opportunity in our second generation products. Okay, so how are we doing, right? Let's give an update first of all on our first generation products, then I'll cover off our second generation products, okay? So this is saying, okay, 2022 was a crap year. It was crap in the first part of it. It improved in the second part of it, but we never recovered the losses in the first part of it, okay? So it's like night and day, the 2022 and 2023 is night and day. We are still struggling to to clear all that stock, but we're getting there each month. So how are we getting there? Okay, and this links back to some of the plans that I outlined earlier, which I think I touched on back in November, December of 2022. We've got to build our product range and territories. And Optifarm, look at Optifarm, okay? They've introduced a wider range, Opti-Woman, Opti-Vegan range, and they've got a ready meal sachet. So this is the sachet that goes in ready meals, and that will be launched shortly. The Opti-Woman, Opti-Vegan range is ready launched. So they're really putting a lot of time and effort into that. And they're also launched a website. So they're putting about $100,000, about £50,000 per month into marketing our product. So that's really starting to look, whereas in 2022, they did no marketing at all. Okay, extending the product range with Nardi. This is our Gold partner, and that's our ongoing. Extending the shops and online presence with Apollo Hospitals. Okay, so Apollo Hospitals launched in September 2021. This is in a number of stores. They've launched in a couple of weeks or so ago, May the 16th on Amazon, and they'll be launching shortly on Flipkart. So these are online routes within India. They doubled the number of stores over the last couple of months. They're aiming for 1,000 stores by the end of the year, and they doubled sales in April 2023 on the preceding month. Okay, so they're really starting to motor now, and we expect more orders from Apollo in maybe the first half of this year, and certainly the second half of the year. We extended the channel to sports nutrition, healthy aging. We launched Lean Buying with the Head Group, with confirmed launches from a new, and this is new news too, okay? I'll comment on it in a bit more later. So we've got a US partner who's also confirmed a launch in the US. So just to remind people, when you're dealing with large retail partners, a bit like Holman Barrett, they work through manufacturers who manufacture the product for them. And then once the manufacturer has a product ready, we tend to sign the agreement. So often you get the order going to the manufacturer and the order going from the manufacturer to us before we sign the agreement. I can only release the news as an RNS once we've got the signed agreement with a partner. But I can tell you that we've got a confirmed launch from a new leading sports nutrition partner. And they're similar, if not bigger, than the Head Group. So actually looking pretty good, okay? And we know we launched Well By them in 2020, a month or so ago. Okay. E-commerce. We did a lot of investment in e-commerce. That's our own site. We're now on Tmall, so we're selling to China. We gave them, as an example, about 600 big bags of the gummies a short while ago. They sold out, so they'll be stocking on that sort in 2 weeks. We're getting some really good sales from them now and growing quickly. We're on Amazon UK, or Walmart USA is now live. And what I've done, I focus more on Slim Biomedical, okay, because there's been an interest in appetite suppressant due to a number of the new obesity drugs, okay, and so I picked up that because that's very much in vogue, and we started to focus more on Slim Biomedical because that's more unique in the marketplace. We'll be on Amazon Germany, Amazon Belgium, Amazon the Netherlands in the next month or so. And April was our highest ever online sales, okay, and that's increased 1,200% in just over 6 months. So we're really starting to get a return on our investment in e-commerce, okay, and that gives us a sense of control over our own destiny. It does require a lot of investment up front, but now starting to see return that investment, and that part of the business was profitable in April. I'm expanding our offerings with Wellbiome, and Amazon will be online. Wellbiome will be online Amazon in May. But we also have to bring in new customers. Remember what I said earlier? So let's see what we got to. Okay, we've got purchase orders from 3 new US customers. Okay, 2 have gone through their contract manufacturers, and 1 has just placed the order over the last day or so. Okay, so that's really starting to look quite nice. Now, some of these partners, I just give an indication as to the scale of these. One of them, if what they say materializes, you're looking at about the requirements for 3 million product. Okay, 3 million units of a product. That will give us around about £3.5 million. Okay, that won't happen immediately. So just to take you through what happens, generally speaking, people, the customer, the partner, whether it's Hollenberg, the Hug Group, they'll launch a limited range, or Nardi, whoever, they'll launch a limited range of products initially in a limited range of stores. If it's stuck, they'll learn from that. Then they'll start to expand the number of stores, expand the number of products on those stores, and that's how you build up. And that will normally happen over a 6 to 12 month period. So we've got some really nice new US customers, which I hope we're able to announce something substantive on over the next month or 2. But the process in terms of orders from their manufacturers, order the product from manufacturers, that's already been initiated. Okay. And we've got 3 customers in the Asia Pacific region. So these are all new customers in Asia Pacific, in places like Indonesia, in terms of Malaysia, in terms of other parts of Asia, who have signed agreements and have purchased product. Okay, so as well as signing agreement, what I'm putting in now to all the agreements is that if you sign the agreement, I want you to make the first purchase order within 3 months. Okay, we've got a new customer in India, and we've got a major international corporate looking for launch in India in H2. I think that's probably got a 75% chance of coming to fruition in H2. I'd like to think it's more because everything's going well with them, but you know, with large corporates, things change in a matter of weeks. So if you take that in terms of our first generation products, that's starting to look quite interesting now. We're getting, so just to recap, what we're trying to do is get our existing partners back on track, selling existing products, selling to more territories and selling more products, selling to new customers, and also investing more online to grow our online store. And this is quite interesting. This is our online store. This is just to show you the percentage growth. Okay, so we started to invest in October 2022, and this is the growth since then. Okay, so it's grown 1,200%. And what does that mean? So as an example, about 60% of our online sales are now Slim Biomedical. Okay, so in October we're selling 25 boxes of Slim Biomedical per month. Now we're selling 340, okay, in April. And that's growing month on month. So we get, hopefully by the end of the year, we get to 1,000 per month. You can have a look at what that means in terms of the price of Slim Biomedical and do your own extrapolation. And more importantly, you have to be careful in terms of the online. You don't exceed the marketing, and so you spend a lot of money on marketing, don't make return. That area was profitable in April 2023. So making a lot of progress in our e-commerce store, and we have got a great guy. I met him at the last IMC presentation, very enthusiastic, and will make a big difference. Okay. Just I just want to finish off now. We've got a couple of slides before we finish off. So we've got about 20 minutes. And what I want to do is finish off in 10 minutes and then take questions. So this is an area which people always ask me on. Okay, this is the icing on the cake. This is where it will really make a big difference in terms of the yours and mine investment. Okay, so what is SweetBiotiX? It's a range of products. Okay, it's not a single product. We have about half a dozen, probably 7 to 8 actually, if you look at it in terms of subparts of the of each of those products, which are fibers, which is sweet. Okay, and it's a technology that we developed and no one else has got. It's all patented, so it includes it. And I said earlier, that's part of the reason why Ferminet came to us. Commercially, we have 2 partners. I'll just give you a quick update in terms of where we are. There's an update in terms of where we are from October, November last year with the last presentation, where I said we had products coming through to us. So our US partner has actually produced a product, okay? They manufactured it to high scale, okay? They've optimized the manufacturing process. We received that as a liquid in December 2022, and recently received it as a freeze-dried product. The liquid is obviously, it will give you the taste profile, but you don't want to be transporting liquid around. You want to be putting into a powder, or ideally, if we can, crystallize it. You just have to be careful that when you freeze dry it or you crystallize it, by adding the cryopreservatives, you don't impact upon the taste. So our partner has done some taste testing, and they've confirmed that and the product is acceptable. We're now going through a lot more detailed analytical testing and structure analysis. Why do we do that? Okay, so we have to look at the structure because we want to know that it's novel. Okay, because if it's novel, that allows us to protect it, but we don't want it to be too novel, whereby the regulatory pathway will be a novel food. Okay, so we're just trying to work the structure such that we have some ability to change the structure without changing the sweetness, whereby we can build an IP portfolio around it to make sure it's protected, but also not create a novel food. It's a bit like having a house and you create a new house, but you're making it unique because you're putting in, I don't know, new types of windows, or putting in, solar panel, and so it's different from everybody else, but it's not so different that people regard it as so novel. It has to go through a different regulatory process. We've got a number of publications, and a really good one was published recently, which talked about, which confirmed that the product has sweetness and prebiotic functionality. So it works in terms of a health benefit. Why is that important? Remember what we said earlier, it's important for partners, but it's also important in terms of marketing. And this is independent research carried out by people, not people who have a vested interest in saying this is sweet and it's got prebiotic functionality, like ourselves and our partners, okay? So that gives investors and partners really good level of comfort. So that's progressing quite nicely, okay? And we'll have some data to feed back on that over the next month or so. But that's close to launch. Second agreement was Ferminet, okay? We signed this in July, really started motoring in October, November with them. We signed the manufacturing agreement, and really they progressed in the last sort of 6 months or so, probably, and more or less caught up or not far off where we are with the US partner, okay? They've scaled up, they produced a product, they tested it, and it tastes fine. And they're now trying to optimize it to make sure we can enhance the yield. The yield currently is about 50%. You really want to get about 7%, but that came from 5%, okay, from the lab scale, 5%, 50%. Really want it around about 75% to make it cost effective. So they're trying to optimize the process, and that will go through over the next couple of months or so. So that's looking really, really quite exciting. So what's the next steps? Okay, the next steps for both of these products, you want to do the structural and functional analysis. You want to go through regulatory approval process, and as I said earlier, you want to make sure the structure is fine, so it's not too novel. That creates a longer time period for regulatory approval, and we need to be working, or we are working with partners on application development in parallel. So we've been doing that for the last year or so, but we just need to make sure before any work with them that we're okay in terms of the freeze-dried product, and our structure is fine in terms of a novel food. So we are close to launch on that. Okay. I just want to go to the next one, okay, which is our microbiome modulators. And everyone talks about SweetBiotiX, but this is even more exciting in some respects. And it's even more exciting because think about the microbiome. Everyone's got the microbiome. Then you think, well, okay, well, if you've got the microbiome, we think it's important. How do we change the microbiome? how do you modify it? So if we think a particular group of bacteria are important, we grow those bacteria. And that's what we got here, okay? We got the ability to precision engineer food to enhance the growth of particular bacteria. And so this is quite unique, okay? And it's also unique in terms of we can create prebiotics, so we can combine a prebiotic with a probiotic, which will really grow, enhance the growth of existing probiotic. So it's what's called a symbiotic. That is very trendy at this moment in time. We get a lot of interest in this. We first raised this in November of last year, and already have got a partner who's progressing at pace. Lots of patents, etc., etc. But this is really quite an interesting product. I just want to tell you where we are in terms of the development status. Okay, so again, let's just step back a little bit. So I've talked about SweetBart, about our first generation products. I've talked about our second generation products, about where we're bringing value. Okay. And these are all value enhancing steps. Okay, so what we've done in terms of microbiome modulators, I've told you in terms of SweetBartics, we've been able to prove the science. We've got independent analysis of the SweetBartics by research groups. They've shown that it's sweet. We've shown this had functionality. Our partners manufactured it. They're happy with the taste. It's about commercializing. That adds real value, okay? And again, on this side, where are we? It's again a really value enhancing step. So what we've done, okay? We've actually created a technique which is unique, okay? No one else has got it, okay? Where we've got a reverse enzyme where we've actually been able to take part of the genome from within a bacteria and get that part of the genome to create an enzyme. That enzyme creates a prebiotic, and that prebiotic then feeds a bacteria. And when it feeds that bacteria amongst all the other bacteria within the gut, increases numbers. Interesting, okay? Increases biological activity. Very interesting. Increases the microbe's health effect. So imagine you're a company who sells a probiotic. You've now got the ability to enhance the probiotic's health effect. That's what we've proven, okay? So this is not what we think you can do. That's what we've proven, okay? This is substantive, okay? We've got the IP and we've got the manufacturing process upscaled in 2022. Again, we're going through a similar process. We're looking at the structure and function to determine novelty. We don't think that will be an issue. We think SweetBartics, you've probably got a 60-40% chance that you'll have something in our favor in terms of novelty. With this, we've created a product which is a prebiotic, which is a fiber, okay? And we can change. So in terms of fiber, it has to have a particular structure, and we created it as a fiber and as part of a group called fructooligosaccharides, which have a particular, which are well known to in the industry. So we don't think there'll be any issue there. That means the regulatory path for microbiome modulators will be much shorter, okay? It might still be short for SweetBartics. We don't know at this moment in time until we determine the structure, and we have to modulate the structure to shorten the regulatory pathway. Commercially, I mentioned previously that we went to Supply Side West in November, met up with the US corporate. It's a 16 billion turnover corporate. I had some really good discussions with them, expressed a lot of interest, and we followed that up with discussions in May of this year. I went out to the US recently, had discussions with their R&D team, their commercial team, and that's looking quite strong. So hopefully we'll have something in the next couple of months on that. So it's whether we launch with them or we launch with, I'll go to a partner deal with them, we try to do something ourselves, okay? And that's what we're working with at this moment in time. But this is really starting to move forward. And just sort of capture all of this, what we've got is we've got the ability, and I'll just say this, and you should read it and read it through time and time again to get the importance of this. We can create unique enzymes from individual microbial species, which can generate prebiotics that enhance the growth and health effect of a microbial species. And that's unique to us. And we can apply that to the gut microbiome or the skin microbiome, okay? We think that's really, really valuable, and we think this is close to commercialization. Okay, what does all mean? Everyone talks about numbers, okay? And so I just want to finish off with a view of the future, okay? And just to be absolutely open with you, when we speak to our partners, they say, look, Steve, we can give you a forecast, but it's unreliable because we don't know that it's too volatile. We don't know whey protein's coming down now. We don't know what's going to happen in the future. We don't know what's going to happen in terms of global economic environment. So give us a couple more months until we see what happens. We give you an actual forecast. When they give me a forecast, I can give the market a forecast. But it's difficult for you to work in the dark. So trying to give you an idea of where we think the revenue potential will be. And a number of assumptions which you can read yourself, but it's really about nothing really major happens going forward because as you saw earlier in 2022, a big impact in terms of the global economy impact upon us. Do we think that investment in e-commerce continue to grow? Yeah, we think it will happen. Do we think our partners return to forecast? We think they will. We don't know if it will take 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, or 18 months. Do we think we'll have a launch of PrebiotiX microbiome modulators in 2023? We think probably we'll have a soft launch in 2023 or the main launch in 2024. So that's what all this is based on. We don't think we'll have much of a contribution from OPTIBIOTIX, but we think we'll have at least 3 new US partners. And I told you earlier about their forecast. I halve those. That's what this is based on. Okay. So what we think we'll have then, okay, is we'll start to really recover in 20. This is where we're doing nicely. First of all, in 2021, dropped off in 2022. Okay, haven't got the actual precise numbers for that because we've got a new auditor in and they're going through those numbers. They'll be out in the next couple of weeks. 2023 really start to recover and get beyond 2021, and 2024 really starts to grow. And by the time it comes to 2026, we should be round about the 10 million plus. Okay, it may be more, maybe less than that. It may be a year earlier, maybe a year later. As I said earlier, if you look at our Australian partner, if they go back to the 130 tons, that's 3.9 million. I haven't put that in there, 3.9 million. I put about 1.5 million. So I'm trying to be cautious because it's so uncertain. But that gives you an idea that if we got a number of things going our way, if the economy comes back to normal, if our partners deliver as they were in 2020, 2020 and 2021, I think we've got some good opportunities here, both in terms of our first generation and also in terms of our second generation. That, of course, is not forgetting about the value enhancements we'll get from probiotics. So I hope you found that useful. I've tried to answer the broader questions that I get asked on a regular basis from investors. I tried to give you an indication that, okay, we're doing well. 2022, like lots of companies, didn't go so well, but we think that was a temporary blip, and we're starting to recover, and we're starting to see real momentum now from existing partners, new partners, and real growth. If we get that right, and particularly in terms of e-commerce, if we get that right, and we get our second generation products out, and in 2023 or 2024, probably soft launch, as I said, in 2023, we'll be in a pretty good position. So thank you very much for listening, and I'll pass you back now to IMC.
Stephen, thank you very much for your presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, please do continue to submit your questions just by using the Q&A tab, which is situated on the top right-hand corner of your screen. But just while Stephen takes a few moments to review those questions submitted today, I'd like to remind you that a recording of this presentation, along with a copy of the slides and the published Q&A, can be accessed via your investor dashboard. Stephen, as you can see, we've received a number of questions throughout today's presentation, and if I could just ask you to read out those questions and give responses where it is appropriate to do so, what I'll do is I'll pick up from you at the end.
Sure. So a couple of questions here. If I start with the first one, now that the reformulated WellBiome product is available in the online store, will the clinical study with the University of Hull mentioned July 2022 commercial and scientific update for end of 2022, first quarter 2023 go ahead? And if so, when? So that's going ahead. So just to remind you, we're approached by the University of Hull. They have a good clinical unit, and they're looking at whether prebiotic can influence the recovery rate post-operatively. Can we reduce the time spent in ICU? We sold them some WellBiome earlier in the year. They've gone through ethics, and now they're engaging people within the study. So that's looking quite interesting. So that's progressing as we anticipated. Okay. Number 18, I think the microbiome, I might have to paraphrase this because this is not a question, it's an essay. It talks really about the microbiome being interesting and the potential to commercialize, and talks about SweetBiotics being on the cusp and looking for an update. And of course, I've given that update. But just, I get this a lot, okay? And this is people not understanding the complexity of the science. And we are creating new science, and it doesn't go in a straight line. It's an iterative process. But as I said to you in the presentation, we've broken the back of this, okay? We've been able to develop the science, prove the science. We've been able to show that our SweetBiotics are sweet and they have a prebiotic effect. And that's been proven by us and by independent researchers, okay? And we've also been able to manufacture it with our partners, and now it's about commercializing, okay? And this is not a short process. This is complex. You're not producing widgets. You're producing something which is quite unique out there, okay? And you saw, I often use an example, people appreciate how long it took to get the battery cars as opposed to petrol and diesel. It takes time, but I think we cracked most of it. Now it's about commercialization, okay? Okay, this is quite a nice one actually. This is saying, look, I like our products. They work really, really well, especially the weight loss offerings. They work for me. What I'd like to know is why we're not using SweetBiotics on our own products, okay? You've actually picked up quite a good point. We'll probably use SweetBiotics on our own products first before they're used by a partner. I talked about potential soft launch because provided I can make sure that it's not a novel food. So in other words, we gain regulatory approval, and there's different regulations in Europe and in the US. We're probably launching our own products first. We can test it and get people's feedback and moderate it in terms of the amount accordingly. And that's what we try to do. So a good example is Wellbiome. We'll launch it on our own website first of all, get feedback. And what I'd ask people to do, if you haven't bought Wellbiome, please buy it and feedback on either Amazon or via our own website. Ideally Amazon, because that helps us get up the ranking. So that's part of our plan. So well spotted there. Okay, a lot of press recently about the cost of obesity to the NHS. What approaches has Opti made to the NHS about promoting the use of Slim Biome? If not, why not? Look, this is a question which I've got a lot of expertise in. If you want to take a product and put it into the NHS, and I brought products into the NHS, you'd be a director of the NHS, you're looking at years. And if we give it to the NHS, then it was, and I've discussed this many times with investors at these sort of forums, that will impact on our ability to commercialize the product within the UK and elsewhere. So imagine you're Holland & Barrett and they're selling the product for X amount, okay? And then we're giving it at a discounted price to the NHS. How does that work, okay? And before you know it, it will be in pharmacies, and you need to keep the value there. So commercially, it doesn't work, okay? It takes too long, also scientifically. This is an interesting one. It's sort of emotional one I get from investors. You stated that you wanted to improve communication and the share price. Okay, yeah, we all want to improve communication and share price. Since then, both have seen a substantial deterioration, particularly in the share price. What you do to get this share price to 50 pence plus? So the reason we haven't been communicating, if you're trying to recover the situation in 2022, you also have to look. This is an unusual market. I've been in this situation for many, many years in the stock market, and this is the worst market I've seen in 2022 and the start of this year. You've seen yourself, even with good news, get sold into. So communication has very little value in terms of these markets, other than reassuring investors. And so having regular RNSs and regular communications, investors are looking to hold their cash because they're not really sure, and many are on substantive losses, not just on OPTIBIOTIX, but across the board. I'm certainly got substantive losses in all my stocks. And so investors are looking to conserve their money because they don't know how low the price is going to go and if the market is going to recover, if we're going to grow. So we're working on that. This is part of that particular process, but this is not magic. Okay, it's a grind. Okay, you've got to get the the messaging right. You've got to get your sales, you've got to get your product selling, you've got to get your new partners in, and you've got to get your second generation products on the market. All those things I discussed earlier, that will start getting the share price back to 50% plus. So, and that's what we're trying to do. Other questions about US contract, I've alluded to that in the presentation. Other questions about progress with Apollo, Nardi, Optifarm, I've covered all of that. I've given an indication of sales figures from each partner. So that gives you a potential going forward. Oh, this is a strange one. Why are there no institutional investors engaged? I get this question on occasion. We have about 8 institutional investors. I don't know where this question comes from. This is, we have Guinness, we have Mercia, we have Seneca. We have a whole range of institutional investors. I was speaking to Mercia on Friday, Seneca a week or 2 ago. We have a whole range of others, and I don't understand why people are asking these questions. I think what they're saying is, why aren't we doing a placing? Because that's when you bring institutional investors in. And one of the key reasons for that is because our balance sheet is so high, we can't get ESVCT, okay? And that's what brings in institutional investors. So most of our institutional investors from our previous fundraisers, okay? I think I'm more or less there now. It's 3 o'clock, and I've answered the majority of questions, and we'll see where we get to in the year ahead. But I hope you found it interesting, and I hope you got an indication of where I see the future taking us in the years ahead.
Stephen, thank you very much for updating investors today. Could I please ask investors not to close this session, as you'll now be automatically redirected to provide your feedback in order that the management team can better understand your views and expectations. This will only take a few moments to complete, but I'm sure will be greatly valued by the company. On behalf of the management team of OPTIBIOTIX Health PLC, we'd like to thank you for attending today's presentation, and good afternoon to you all.